Let's bring in Fadel Abdul Ghany. He's the chairman and founder of the Syrian Network for Human Rights. Thanks for joining us on the program, Fadel. Now, we know that Turkey is now not stopping refugees from leaving its borders into the EU. Do you think that this will result into the European nations stepping up to the plate to help finance this humanitarian crisis we're facing?
We hope so, but I think that the border should be open for those who are seeking refugees in front of the Turkish Syrian border. Now there is above than 1,200 IDP camps scattered everywhere with disaster humanitarian situation there, lacking to and we all know that there is a bitter cold at that moment, especially previous days. So I think this humanitarian crisis will pressure it's mainly affecting and pressure the Turkish government actually, and they keep holding this moral toward refugees. But I think this responsibility not only toward the Turkish government, but rather than all the European and the American and other civilized country in order to support this, because we are not talking about few thousand, we are talking above than 1.2 millions who just been affected those recent 2 months, rather than we have about 3 millions in deep need in Idlib. But I'm talking just who's been displaced recently from Martul Nu'man
since December in Idlib. Now, Fadel, this week the UN described what's happening in Idlib as a horrific situation. We've heard of children who've died from the cold, not to mention the constant bombardment of the Syrian regime they face. Just give us an idea of the state that the people are in there.
We are in Syrian Network for Human Rights, following the casualties daily. Just within 46 days, above than 300 civilians being killed, and 87 children and 39 ladies above than 18 mean. So we are talking about about 45% from the total casualties are children and women that refer to the targeting of the civilians neighborhood, rather than we recording several attacks on the medical facilities. And also in one day, day before yesterday, we recorded 5 attacks against education centers like schools and gardens. We recorded also yesterday, we have a report about using the cluster munition. Yesterday, the Russian Air Forces targeting mosques in Saraqib. What I want to conclude very quickly, that without safe zone, without no-flying zone being implemented, no one is safe. Those civilians are in protection, and they need to be protected after they being displaced. So who's displaced them? Following them by killing and by preventing to be delivered to them. So our keep requesting is the safe zone for those. This safe zone will also need the international community to implement it out of the UN Security Council, because the UN Security Council and the Russian permanent member is and the Russian forces who committed the majority of crimes in northwest Syria, in Idlib and around, will block any resolution. So this should be similar what's happened in North Iraq, implemented by US and by alliance also in cooperation with the Turkish government. Then those civilians will feel protected.
Now, Fadel, Turkey has been a key player when it comes to supporting displaced Syrians. It houses almost 4 million of them at this point. What needs to be done at this stage for these people who live under these terrible circumstances?
I think this also out of the capacity of the Turkish government, this also need to be cooperated and further fund from several government and those need to be allocated also. 4 millions is a big figures, and also as I mentioned, like there is 1.2 millions around the Turkish border, so we are talking about 5 million. So those need to be allocated around the world, and also need this further fund to those. And I think that opening the border will pressure some government to move and to end this crisis, because the root of the crisis is random shelling, what is Russian being committed in Syria, those war crimes and the destruction of the towns. So generation more IDP and refugees is based on the attacks, the aerial attacks from mainly the air forces, and without any movement to end the root of the generating of the ITP and the refugees, the situation and the flooding of those will be continue.
Okay, Fadel, we'll leave it there for now. Thank you for those updates.